Good evening, everyone. I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. There are 7 board members present. I will take a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, our first item tonight is the program highlight from Flint Hills Learning Center.
We have Director Justin Sargent and Teacher Karen Sargent here to present updates and highlights of the Flint Hills Learning Center.
Okay. Just as a reminder, we're not related. So, sorry.
One of us spells her name wrong.
I know. Mine is the military real spelling. Okay, so anyway. Wait, can you go back to that last one? That first one, okay. Here's the first one is our staff with our new sign. So thank you very much. That is right outside our door. And I just want to thank you for that because it kind of matches everyone in the district. And it adds to our wonderful location at the mall. And this is all of our staff, minus our evening Elsa Flores. And we have a small veteran staff of 10 women led by Mr. Sargent, which is often a very hard job because some of us have been teaching almost as long as he's been alive. So he has a difficult job, but he does a wonderful job of leading us. So next slide, please. Impactful changes. We are always busy using Capturing Kids' Hearts. We use the daily greetings. We're always building relationships between staff and students using the daily affirmations. Each of us, we take turns greeting the students each day. Mrs. Roth and I take turns, and also you'll see Patricia, one of the aides from the other side, for the ESL side, she also takes turns, and that helps us get to know each one of the students, and that we love that because we, get to be like, hey, how are you doing? That way we can kind of see, if they're in a bad mood, maybe something's bothering them, so we can kind of be like, we might need to take it easy on them today, or something like that. So we love that. That's the best thing of the Capturing Kids' Hearts is getting to know the students. So we love that. And the next thing is the new curriculum. So this year started off a little bit rocky because we did have our new curriculum. So because we started out, last year we had the 180 Days of Awesome, and then we had the new curriculum change. So, and I'll be the first to admit, I'm not a big one on change. So, Mr. Sargent here kind of had to bring us together and was like, you know what? We need to embrace the change because without change, there is no growth. So we had to, he had to bring us together and say, let's do this. So with this new curriculum, we thought, we're not going to like this. The kids are going to hate it. But guess what? They loved it. They loved taking notes. The guided notes, we printed them out, and it helps them learn how to take notes. It's increased the rigor, it increased the student engagement, it increased the student learning, then it's increased their grades. It's amazing. So thank you so much for letting us have this new curriculum, because it's been amazing for our program. So we already have 7 graduates. So it's really good. So we love this new program. So it's been excellent. Next. Our adult English as a second language classes. We have large class sizes, as you can tell from here, and our attendance has remained steady, which is kind of unusual for the, adult classes, but even through, usually in December it kind of tails off. Even in December, it has remained steady. So, as even tonight, I'm having, Rhonda Hajir is covering my classes, and as soon as I get done here, I'm going to go back to teach my class. So we're still having those heavily attended classes. So, and next. Community engagement. For the first time ever, the mall manager came to me and said, hey, I want some students to come and meet with me and see what we can do, what the kids want for in the mall, for as far as like what kind of stores, what kind of events. He's like, can you get some kids to come? So I said, hey, you guys want to go and meet with the mall manager? And these kids were like, yeah, we want to go talk to him. So these kids all, you can see how many went and to visit with him. And it was so neat to see them interact with the mall manager. And they had some really good ideas. So for the first time, instead of getting in trouble and causing problems, at the mall, they really don't anymore, but they were just like, they were contributing members of society, and it was really neat to see them see, hey, you know what? I can be a contributing member of society. So it was neat to see them, become more adult-like and see, I can do something. I can be the change. Next. And our adult ESL classes also had some community engagement. We had an elective culinary arts class in cooperation with the Migrant Education Program and Emporia Spanish speakers. Lyon County State Bank let us have the building, the room to have the class, and there's a couple of slides of things. At least 20 people were in the class. So there's another slide of it. And so you can see that I think there was like 4 or 5 weeks of classes. So that was a neat thing to see so many people having, so much engagement. And then the last one is our citizenship classes. That's our newest citizen. So, and she's from Thailand. And there are 3 more working towards citizenship now, and we offer those, and they are available in English and Spanish. And those are the wonderful things that are happening at the Flint Hills Learning Center. So,
Thank you.
there you go. Oh, are there any questions?
Roughly, what percentage of your students are there in the evening compared to the daytime? Do you have a guess on that?
There's probably more in the morning as there are in the evening,
Yeah,
but
but you have quite a few evening type,
yes,
obviously.
it has increased in the evening as compared to other years.
Okay, good.
Any other questions?
No, just really awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
And I appreciate your enthusiasm.
All right, thank you.
Okay, the next item is public comment. Casey, are there any public comments this evening?
We do not have any.
Thank you. As a reminder, anyone wishing to provide public comments should complete the online request to submit comments form. This form will need to be completed by 1 p.m. on Wednesday, the day of the board meeting. That brings us to the consent agenda. The items listed on the consent agenda are considered by the Board of Education to be routine business items. Approval of the items may be made by a single motion, second, and majority vote with no separate discussion of any item listed. Should a member of the board desire to discuss any item at his or her request, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. What are the wishes of the board?
I move to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0.
The next item is 6A, Emporia Middle School Enrollment Course Guide for 2025-26. This is the first reading.
We have Mr. John Martin, principal of Emporia Middle School, and also Mr. Adrian Trujillo, assistant principal, as needed.
All right, good evening. We had a couple changes. I don't know if you have them listed in front of you, and I'll go ahead and read them off. Right now, we're looking at making a change from a 6-period day to a 7-period day. Right now, we're not exactly sure exactly how it's going to change our time in our classrooms, but what that allows is students to have more choices for electives, because if you were to go back in time and talk to little John Martin, he came to school not necessarily for math, he came for PE and for FACS and for shop. So we're just giving kids more options there. And our kids do, I think we have some of the best electives in Northeast Kansas. So we are going to request changes at the quarter. Right now, when kids want to make a change, they'll get their elective. And right now, we are quarterly classes for electives. So it's going to be more, it's a kind of a clarification for when you can request a change. We're going to add verbiage that parents cannot request academic teams. What we're having this year, probably more so than ever, is parents requesting individual teachers instead of a team. So to be consistent with what the elementaries do, we're just going to go ahead and say the computer just randomly selects you with a team. You don't get to pick this English teacher, English language arts off a Lime, and then you're going to get the silver science teacher. It's just going to all be computer generated, so we didn't have that before. We are going to change chorus for 6th graders from to 1 quarter from 2. We're going to eliminate a lot of duplication in our book on pages 8 and 9. Our 2D and 3D used to have seasonal descriptions in them. The descriptions were the same. It had the season on it. So winter art, spring art. So we're just going to eliminate that and just kind of cut some pages off of our booklet. Facts should be 2 quarters and not 4 quarters. That was just a typo. We wanted to add to our programming. Our staff has really embraced capturing kids' hearts this year. There's a class offered called Lead Worthy. It's focused just on capturing kids' hearts and what kids can do to become better leaders. We offered it for 7th and 8th grade, but not for our 6th graders. And so some of our 6th grade teachers have been asking to teach that class. There's a curriculum that they would just add for 6th grade, and then if they wanted to do it 7th grade, it'd be a different curriculum, 8th grade, it'd be a different one. But we didn't have that as an option for 6th graders, but we've had a couple 6th grade teachers say, hey, I'd really like to teach that class, but it wasn't in our program planning guide. We're gonna go regular chorus from, that'd be for 7th and 8th graders, from 2 quarters to 1 quarter. We would also like our 7th and 8th grade students to be required to take 1 quarter of PE, but they may request more. And the reason we're doing that is we're having a lot of kids who, to fulfill the obligation, they take the class and they are non-participants. And so we want to have kids go to classes that they really want to enjoy, but everybody's going to take a quarter. And then last, we've talked about this before, is all 6th graders are going to have a fine arts requirement. So those 6th graders coming in may not have experienced theater or chorus or band or our orchestra teacher. So we're asking them to try it. It's kind of, it's just, I think it's important. And I think middle school is one of those things that you're transitioning from 6th grade. It's kind of that forced elective. So we're going to have them look at the fine arts on that. Any questions?
No. Okay.
I may not get a chance to do this before I get, but I really appreciate, I've been the principal at Village and at the middle school, and I may not get to address this body, but I appreciate all your support through all our years. And this Emporia is a great place for people to work, but it's about the people. Dr. Harder's been super supportive with all my crazy ideas. You know, Anna Rodriguez and Brandy Mitchell over at Village, and Willie Turner and Sandy Barajas, and all the assistant principals, Adrian Trujillo, Allie Waddle, Morgan Pearson, and Brad Jones have been just, I couldn't ask for better crews to work with and better people to work with. And I think that's why you stay in Emporia, is because of the people. So thank you for everything, and I appreciate that. If there's any questions, just please let me know.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. The next item is 7A, update on Mary Herbert structural issues.
Okay, we have Mr. Corey Nicolette, Director of Grounds and Maintenance and Grounds. Thanks for being here, Corey.
Evening. So you may recall the board meeting on February 28th of this year, KC Pro Rob Kramer from KC Pro came and talked to us about the southwest corner of the building. And I'd like to recap a little of that, because it's been quite a while ago. At that time, we discussed the measurements he took on 12/20/2023, so right at a year ago. The southwest corner had fallen 3.5 to 3.75 inches, and then had fallen less in the furthest corner to just under 3 inches. So as we go through the building, it's where it's supposed to be, goes down about 3.5 to 3.75 inches, and then up a little bit, but still down almost 3 inches on the far corner. Another thing that he'd found during that, which is pretty big and we can't really fix it, so we're stuck with it, is the columns that go down the center of the building are not to the depth that they should have been. So it's not a fix-it situation, it's just they're shorter than they should be, so we don't have the structural support that the building this size should have. That is not something we're talking about addressing, because it's not sinking right now, but it is something that no matter what we do, that is going to be a factor that's a constant with all the other stuff we're talking about. At that time, the pricing to just stop it from falling, that's not fixing the problem, that's just arresting the condition, was around $160,000 to $190,000. And then we projected around $30,000 to fix the aesthetics. So that's not actually taking walls down and fixing what may be behind them. That was just make it look nice from the outside. Those costs have gone up 10 to 15% since 12 months ago when we looked at those expenses. That 10 to 15%, I looked at some of the costs that we've had, and I also contacted several contractors that would be in fields that were associated with what we're talking about. I got anywhere from 10 to 15, a couple said 13.5 was kind of what they figured in. So pretty consistently seeing the 10 to 15% cost over that, which puts us just under $250,000 to just stop the problem from getting worse with what we know and to make it look pretty from the outside. That is not addressing any of the problems that have been transferred from the very base up through the walls, through the floors, or any of the problems we don't even know about yet that we won't know till we take those walls down and see what's happening behind them. He is coming back to remeasure to see how much, if any, we've sunk since a year ago. Another factor we have in this is that everyone is very busy right now, especially as the weather's held out longer this fall than usual. We actually had a fall, which was really cool, and it's still here. So everyone is very busy. We're not getting they need work deals on anything right now. It's very much you'll get on our list, we'll get to you when we're done with all these other projects. So he had some projects that ran long. Like I say, he's very packed right now. He'll plan to be here tomorrow now to measure. I was hoping to have some measurements to give you tonight, but that is going to be tomorrow that he'll actually come and measure. In about a week, he'll give me an official report of where we're at, and then we'll look at what those results are, and I'm sure I'll be back the next meeting to talk about the specific results. I want to talk to you tonight, though, about the overall impact of what it would take to fix it. And really, nobody will give me a good answer. There's so many variables. There's so many unknowns. Till we get the walls taken down and see the structural integrity behind those, no one's going to give me a price until we see what that is. Well, the cost just to do that is going to be very high. Like I say, the $30,000 that I said in February, that was to just flatten it aesthetically, make it look pretty from the outside. Think about it like kind of if you had a stack of spaghetti on top of each other, right? You move the bottom one, the top one's doing something. We don't know what that something is. So one of the costs we'd be looking at is probably bringing in an engineering firm separate from KC Pro to assess as we went along, because there's no report they can give us today that tells us what any of this looks like. So that's going to be an ongoing cost. Historically, those have started around $20,000 for that consultation to even get paperwork saying, here's what you have. What we have today is going to change every time something happens. KC Pro a year ago didn't want to give us a price on what it would cost to lift it, which is really what needs to happen is we lift it back into place. That way everything's as designed. If you remember back to old science class, your angles determine what your weight capacities are. Our angles aren't correct, so our weight capacities are not correct. All that has to be figured and changed. So I like to bring you hard numbers, right? I really like numbers. That's a good way to determine things. All I have on this is all the numbers are bad. Everything we're looking at is going to take a lot of time. In that time, things are changing. None of it's going to improve in that time. The $250,000 we're looking at is potentially even a Band-Aid. If you recall, in 2012, they did the east side of the building. That wasn't in as bad a shape, and it's still holding strong. We've got much bigger problems over here. So if you're looking at $250,000 just to even really get started, I don't see how we end up under $1 million for any of this. Potentially much more than that. And the worst part is we don't write the check until after we take it off and see, and by then it's too late to back out. So I just wanted to give you that update. That's where we're at. Again, I'm sorry I don't have hard numbers for you, but we do have a kind of a direction if that's the way you guys want to go. But unfortunately, there's a lot of X's on the amount to provide.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for doing all the work to look into that. I think that we all understand that you don't have the hard numbers right now. I appreciate you doing all that research. Always, you're very thorough. Of course. Are there any questions?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is 7B, Benefits and Open Enrollment Update from IMA.
Okay, Pam Stranovan, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, will do the introductions.
Yeah, so we have Lisa here from IMA and Jeff here from Benefits Direct. And I want to speak before they speak to let you all know how well this went. This transition couldn't have gone smoother than what it did. Everything from just getting things flipped over from our systems to their systems went smoothly, and all of the enrollments just went really well. And they'll share that with you because Benefits Direct did a survey, which you all can see, and was just extremely pleased with both parties in this. And they have continued to stick with us. They have continued to have communication with us. We meet weekly with them and have conversations and continue to look at things to improve and also things to keep offering to our employees. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Hello. I need to tell you first before I start, Nick is not able to be here. He has a senior, I think most of you know that, and there was an event. So as he has all of these last times throughout this year, we want to make sure he's able to be there. He says hello and expresses his appreciation as well. I have the opportunity to visit with you just briefly before Jeff gives you results and more in-depth information, but I want to say thank you first to each of you here. The Emporia open enrollment went extremely well, and Jeff will share more why that happened, but we put a pretty aggressive timeline in front of you at the last time that we were here and expressed the need for us to be able to meet that in order for everything to go well. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for giving us that opportunity. I think you'll find that it went extremely well and it was a really good decision. With that, I also need to make sure I'm doing my very best to express to you the quality and the leadership that you have here. It was one of the most fulfilling experiences that I have gone through in my career, watching all of this come together. And it was because of the quality of people, starting with you, especially with your leadership, and their support staffs. Melissa did an incredible job. She really embraced this and took ownership and leadership in those day-to-day decisions and administration. Your on-site leaders did the exact same thing. So from top to bottom, good job to Emporia School District. You guys really did a fantastic job. With all of that, we still have to have a really good partner, and I would express the same appreciation for Benefits Direct, for Jeff and his team. Like us, like you, we take what we do very, very seriously for the benefit of the people that we are representing, and we don't take that lightly. We brought a lot of really great people with the same passion and the same end goal together, and I think you'll find from what Jeff is going to share, we did what we hoped we would be able to do. So thank you very much. I'll stop and Jeff can explain more.
Good evening. Lisa, I echo 100% of that. I've been fortunate enough to be in this business for over 20 years. This was one of the best and smoothest transitions, and that was because of all the hard work. Pam, you and your team, just everybody, it was great. So very much appreciate it. My organization is fortunate enough to work with over 30 schools in the state of Kansas, over 100 throughout the Midwest, and our counselors that were out there meeting with every single individual. You'll see some survey results, but we hear back. Trust me, they're vocal. You guys have so many kind people working for you that were just fair, honest people having great conversations. And so we were excited to partner with you, and we hope that we've got a very, very long partnership ahead of you. So just a couple slides to go through. You've probably seen some of this, but just some overview, participation, we'll dive into that. And I think very importantly, survey feedback, giving the employees that voice to speak back as to how the process went. Obviously, you guys are very well aware, 978 eligible employees, but you'll see the appointments were actually more than that because we encourage employees, if they need more time, in many instances, maybe you have spouses that are both employees, book multiple time slots. If you have questions, you need to come back. Let's take care of you. So great leadership, especially by each location, of making sure employees were signing up for appointments and taking time to see us. Enrollment October 21st through November 1st, and then I'll have to transition to the next slide, please. The next two slides will kind of give you a report based on what was participation in each line of coverage last year to this year. What's that participation as a percentage of your population, and then what's the differential? So you can kind of see, are there any trends? As you look through this, I'm happy to answer any questions. You'll obviously know the third one down is a brand new employee benefit, so you're not going to see any differentials there. A little bit of a reduction on the short-term disability. Honestly, you guys still have 61% participation. That's still very strong. So outside looking in, our counselors are not commissioned folks. And so part of me wonders is, were there maybe some stronger sales by the predecessors? And that was some of the feedback that we got. And so I think it's maybe just right-sizing things. On the next slide, some additional plans. You'll see everything's fairly consistent. There is a jump on the accident plan. And a lot of the feedback was it was a very strong wellness benefit, where if employees were going in and utilizing that benefit, catching things early, which is great for all parties involved, it can almost, and in some cases, actually pay for the premiums of the plan. So that was a big driver and a lot of conversation. We heard employees talking about from the counselors. But everything else, permanent life, you see a little bit of a dip there. That's because in many instances, folks already had permanent life in place. They bought it years ago. We're going to advise them to keep that. They were younger then, as we all were, right? So it might make more sense for them to retain that plan. But next up are some of the survey questions. You'll see the first one, it was the individual counseling session beneficial to you. We had 99.3% of the population say yes. Do you feel your benefit counselor was knowledgeable on the benefit plans available? That's a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being the best. It was a 4.9 rating. Do you feel the counselor explained all the plans and options available in a manner that was straightforward and easily understood? Again, 4.9 out of 5. Do you feel more educated about the plans being offered by your employer? 4.7 out of 5. The last one here is rate the benefits in general by your employer. This is really good. Rarely do I see anything above 3.8, 3.9, 4, 4.1. So I felt like that was very good feedback. And that's just from working with a lot of different school districts throughout the Midwest on that feedback. So overall, very big compliment there. Then the last part of the survey is just an open-ended question where they can write literally anything they want. There's, I think, 160 some responses. I won't go through every single one of them, but, comments of, did a great job explaining my deductions last year to this year, love the wellness benefit, The new legal option is great. Sometimes they'll name counselors. The most down-to-earth person we've ever had to work with. This was a great experience. So I won't go through each and every one of these. You all can obviously read through those, but that was really the theme of those responses, of just overwhelming positive experiences. And a lot of that, again, goes back to the pre-communication we had, the top-down leadership of what to expect, because change is the only constant in life. It was a big change. These are very important changes, but I think it went extremely well. So we very much appreciate your partnership, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you like.
What questions do we have?
One question I had was like on taking the medical insurance, it's 52%, but would you say that most, the ones that are not taking it, would it be usually because they're on a spouse's policy? Is there anything else that you see would enter into that?
That was the typical kind of feedback we had from our counselors. And Lisa, I don't know if you've got anything additional you would want to add to that.
So there are some still on their parents' plan, we know that. And then on a spouse's plan. Forgot the small detail. So there are several that are still on their parents' plan, and then we see those that are on spouses' plans as well. It's not as common that we see people decline coverage when they don't have coverage somewhere else. There is a little bit of that, but primarily it's because they have access to something else.
Other questions?
I just have a quick question. On slide 3, where it says MASA, emergency transport, that's a new option, correct? And 89 chose that.
It is.
Is that just for ambulance, like the vehicle, or is that for helicopter as well?
It covers both,
It
air
does.
or ground. There's
Okay.
absolutely no network. And so part of the reason we made that available are there are so many different ambulance services throughout the country.
right.
And you, in a life-threatening situation, you're not going to stop to think about, am I in or out of network? And so MASA has been a wonderful partner of not only ours, but IMA's in offering that solution. I grew up in western Kansas. I understand life flights. They can be very detrimental in a financial situation, so that was the reason for making that available.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I may add to that, thank you for that. If I may add, we're seeing a lot more of those billable charges for the ground transportation and air. And a lot of times they're processed as out-of-network, leaving a pretty large balance to the member. So we are being a lot more proactive, encouraging that benefit, because it's a large financial commitment if they don't have that in place.
Yeah, I think it helps when someone knows someone who's had to use it and
Agree.
what it did for them. I have a friend, and she's in the district, but her insurance, it was through her husband's employment, but they had a son who's type 1 diabetic and had to be life flighted at one point when he was little, and they didn't know about that insurance at that point. They got it, and someone said to them, well, what's the odds you're ever going to need that again? They had an emergency with the birth of their next child, and he had to be life flighted, and it covered it all. So when you know someone like that, all of a sudden it becomes a much more important
Absolutely.
option.
And with that, those air flight expenses I've seen them come in at $75,000, $80,000. And when you need that, money doesn't matter. So to be able to provide the MASA option, it's a really meaningful benefit and takes a lot of anxiety away at a time that you need that support, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is 8A, the Strategic Plan Quarterly Report.
All right, well, this is our December quarterly report, and we're going to start with the triangulation, which is a carryover study session. So Judy Stanley and other teaching, learning, and student services members are going to come up and each take a slide.
Okay, before we get started with the slides, I wanted to do an overview of the handout that's also included. Casey, could you open up the one that says review? And there's another handout, the data reflection tab, that one right there. Okay, So this handout is a summary of what you worked on at the November study session, as well as what the buildings have worked on. And so what you're going to see are the celebrations that were identified, as well as growth areas, areas of challenge. At the end of each statement, you'll either see BOE for Board of Education or building, or you might see both. And what that indicates is which group identified that as a celebration or area of growth. So you can see what you saw as similarities, you can see things that you saw were a little different. We had 2 buildings we weren't able to do at the study session, and so we asked a couple of DST members, Mr. Jared Giffen and Mrs. Pam Stranathan. They did this for Timmerman and Walnut. So on their slides, you're going to see DST. So that's what they came up with. We wanted to provide you with this. We're not going to go through all of these because there's a lot there, but we did want to honor the fact that everybody has done this work. And what we're doing tonight in our presentation is kind of a summary of all of this and how it affects us as a district. You can see as you look through the celebrations and growth areas, there's a lot of commonalities on the celebration side, whether it's with the grade levels or the groups, the subgroups, but you also see the same thing on the growth areas. Okay, so what questions do you have about that handout? Nope, that one right there. Well, the attachment.
Yeah, the attachment.
I couldn't print it. It prints funny. Sorry about that. Yeah. Sorry about that. Read my mind. I'm so sorry. Okay, then we can go to the slides now, Casey. Okay, so we are going to talk about our celebrations, our areas of growth. We're going to triangulate some data between FastBridge and state assessment, talk about action plans, and then future board presentations. So here are our celebrations, and this is where you might want to have your notebooks if you have them, because we might be flipping through some pages. The first thing that we saw as a commonality, if you would go to, we're going to look at the district tab. So if you would open up the district tab, and we have some extra notebooks if somebody needs one. Okay. So if you go behind the district tab to, I've got to get my own notes, page 2, you will see that a commonality, a positive piece that we have is when kids come to school, we are showing growth. So that is a good thing. That means good things are happening at school. You can also see that if they have been continuously enrolled in the district, so that 3 data point piece, our kids are showing growth. You can see that our 3s and 4s are improving over time. And we really, for the most part, we're trying to look at 22 through 24 to kind of see a pattern there. If you go to page 1, you'll see some other pieces that are kind of exciting to look at. If you look at the following subgroups: free and reduced lunch, full pay, non-English language learners, typical peers, chronically absent, 3 data points, you're going to see that the 3s and the 4s are increasing, and that is a celebration that we want to look at. So very proud of that as a whole district. We also have some growth areas in cohorts. I've listed grade levels, but I want to just point out a couple. If you would go to page 3, you're going to see 3rd grade and the all students. For the all students, we had in level 1s in 2023, okay? So we're thinking about this last year's 4th grades. So this is how they scored in 2023. 34% of the students scored at the level 1. When they went to 4th grade, which you'll see on page 5, it went down to 23%. That is a decrease of 11% in level 1 for those 4th grade students. So that cohort over time is decreasing. And the same thing is happening in 6th grade and 10th grade over time. But when you look at that, you have to go back to the previous year and then to the next year. We have the same thing happening in 1s and 2s in 4th grade and 5th grade and 10th grade. So some good things happening there. Similarly, in math, not as many grade levels, but we've got a decrease in 1s in 7th grade and 10th grade, and an increase in a decrease in 1s and 2s in 8th grade. I also wanted to share, and it's not on the slide, but when you look at grade levels themselves, So if you look at page 5, third grade, all students, you can see that our 3s and 4s are increasing from 22 to 23 to 24. So we're increasing that subgroup. The same thing is happening in 4th grade. 3rd grade made a 12% increase, and 4th grade made a 10% increase. That's a lot. And we also did the same thing in 10th grade. We had a 7% increase in ELA. In math, if you look at grade 3, and that is on page 17, we saw an 8% increase in our 3s and 4s. In 4th grade, on page 19, you see an increase in 3s and 4s. And in 8th grade, they have a really nice increase on page, oh, and I have the wrong page number, so now I've got to flip through my own tabs. On page 29, 8th grade increased from 22 to 23, the number of students at 3s and 4s by 11%. So we are seeing some growth. We've got a lot of areas that we know we need to address, but there are some celebrations across the district.
And now I'm going to talk about areas of growth. So I feel like we're playing bingo with the numbers of the pages, so just bear with us as we kind of walk through and share the page numbers with you. So when we think about chronic absenteeism, again, as Mrs. Stanley said, it really benefits our students when they are at school. So if you look at page 2, you can see on all students, we're still in the all, for the all district. When you look at chronically absent, and then not chronically absent, we have quite a difference. When we look at chronically absent, just our graph shows that we have a lot of room to grow as compared to the students who are in attendance every day. So again, it pays to be at school. It really benefits the students. And then if we look at the next bullet, it says overall students with disabilities. So we are actually going to go to page 1. And if you look at the bottom, we're kind of on pages 1 and 2, so the bottom of page 1 and then the top of page 2, you can see that our students with disabilities tend to score lower than the peers without disabilities. So again, just one area that we pulled of an area for growth. We also looked at our English language learners, and we've talked about this a great deal during Board of Education meetings. They tend to score lower than their non-English language learner counterparts, and that's also on page 1 as well with the ELL piece and then the non-English language learners. We also, the next bullet talks about free and reduced lunch. So again, on the same page, you're going to see the graphs for free and reduced lunch students and then full pay only lunch. We've talked many times about chronic absenteeism, students who are on free and reduced lunch, students with disabilities, those things. And in a little bit, Mrs. T. is actually going to talk about some of those steps that we're going to take to look at those. The last part are, as Mrs. Stanley talked about, cohorts. So I'm going to give you a couple page numbers to look at. So the first one we're going to look at is ELA, and we are actually going to look at page 5. So if you look at page 5 and you look at 2022, so we're still in all students, so 2022, you will see that that cohort, we were at 72% at a level 1 and 2. And then if you look at that cohort and we go to this current year, which is on page 9, you can see that we are at a 76%. So we went from a 72% at levels 1 and 2, and then we actually increased that to a 76%, and that's not the movement that we want to go. That's actually going back, and we really want to see that forward movement and that achievement to go up. If you look at math, and we're going to look at pages 21, we're going to start with 21. So in year 2022, this group would have been 4th graders. And you can see that they're at 79% at levels 1 and 2. And then if you go to page 25, that same group was in 4th grade in 2022. They're in 6th grade now, or this past year, and we are at 87%. So again, we have those cohorts that it's not shifting the way that we want it. And so we really are looking at, okay, how can we look at these cohorts and put in supports and things that we know we need to do, not only in ELA, but then in math as well.
All right, well, you look like your fingers could use a break, so we're not going to turn as many pages here, but for my slide here, when we start talking even deeper about the triangulation, you guys are going to want to be referencing this one, please. And then we also might make reference to a couple of pages later on as we talk. But so we're going to take a look at the information here, the FastBridge information. So just the lay of the land again on this. Dr. Cardula created this. So grade levels across, and then the cohorts are the colors as we go down. So that first bullet. So what we've seen is that FastBridge consistently has a higher percentage of students that are scoring at that low risk and post-secondary ready level than the state assessments when we compare those level 3 and 4 scores. So we're seeing that. A couple things we wanted to point out was, if you'll recall, you do have to be, in order to hit that low risk, you're scoring at the 40th percentile already. So that's pretty significant. When we were scoring at level 2 on the state assessment, that equates to this student has a basic understanding of those grade level standards. So just to kind of define what we're looking at there and what we're talking about. One thing we're doing right now is we are taking a look at how close our students who did score at level 2 on state assessments, how close were they really to that level 3? And we're seeing some interesting information there, so I did want to share that a little bit. So in 2024, last year on our state assessments, we had multiple students who were scoring within 10 points of that level 3. So for example, on ELA, we had, at the 5th grade level, we had 34 students who were within 10 points of being then at that third level 3 in the state assessment. 6th grade, we had 37 students. 10th grade, we had 31 students, and again, that was in ELA. In math, at the 3rd grade level, we had 36 students who were close to that level 3. In 4th grade, we had 34 students, and then in 8th grade, we had 30 students. So we're still kind of playing around with that and digging in to see what truly does that mean for us, but I just thought that was pretty interesting, so we wanted to share that. So we have noted there's a similarity with most of the cohort data between FastBridge and between our state assessment scores. We're seeing that in terms of the grade levels showing either positive growth or showing a little bit of a decline. So we are seeing a relationship there. So on that third bullet, when we compared 2022 to 2024, we compared FastBridge, and again, looking at that low risk and post-secondary ready, to the state assessments at levels 3 and 4. We've got some data there below for you, and that's where the page numbers might come in here. So again, doing those grade level comparisons of FastBridge and state assessments, so that's below. You can see some grade levels there where we showed improvement in both of those. 4th grade, we showed improvement in both FastBridge and in state assessment. Again, that was at 8th grade as well, and the top there is ELA. The bottom is math. So again, we're seeing the growth. We're digging in deeper into the data and really uncovering some things. But we need to keep in mind, a big piece of data for me that I'm so intrigued by is how close our students were on the state assessment. We had so many students that were close to meeting that level 3. So that's pretty exciting. When we continue to talk about triangulation of data, we can't forget that third data point. So that third data point is coming from classroom information, from formative assessments, from behavior, from absenteeism, attendance, those kind of things. So that kind of completes that whole triangle, and we have to look at all of that. So it's pretty exciting to be digging in as deep as we are right now, because I think some good things are going to happen. So any questions on that? Go ahead.
I do think that 10 points thing is pretty interesting because, it's one day.
Right.
Like and who knows if it had been the next day? Did they get more sleep? Did they have a better breakfast? Were they not mad at their mom at drop off? You know what I mean? Like, who the heck knows? And so, yeah, it's just so up to chance.
Well, and I just want to point out that when it's over 30 students, that's over 10% in that grade level. So that would be 10% more kids that would be in a 3 and a 4, and that's significant. So,
I just had 2 quick questions. So, I appreciate you sharing the number of students that are kind of on that cusp, like they're almost to level 3, right? Is that information that we have from the previous year as well? So could we see, like, if those students that were on the cusp in the previous year, did they move up?
So do the 10-point thing, but do it for 2023 is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could probably do that, right?
so looking back and seeing if it's the same students. So did I, Judy Stanley, was I within 10 points
Yes.
last year, and am I still within 10 points? Yes, I
Yes.
think we could do that.
Okay.
Yep.
And then what is your prediction for 2025? Like, do we think that we'll see a similar pattern?
Did you bring the crystal ball or?
If you don't know, it's okay.
I don't want to commit myself to saying I
No,
know.
it's okay.
Because, last year we saw some really positive things, and I felt like we were going to see the same type of positive growth, and we kind of stalled out in some pieces. And so I would like to think so. Some of the buildings are really looking at those kids that are on the border and thinking, okay, what can we do for them? What's that extra boost that they need because they're so close? Sometimes those are the kids that kind of slip through the cracks. So I do know some buildings are looking at them to target.
And Lillian, I think that's a really good question, and maybe, I really like that you want to do like a 1-year look back on that. And so maybe that's just something we can sort of be mindful of and track going forward to see who I like the cusp students, we'll call them the cusp students. But I think that's really important too, because I think to Leslie's point, it is a point in time. It's an important point in time, but it also can sort of help us see, look at it in a more positive light than what, 1, 2, 3, 4 indicates.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, I am going to discuss our action steps now, and so you won't have to flip at all for mine. Okay, so looking at the professional development that our buildings are providing, we are focusing on the topics listed on this slide. These are all ongoing topics that we will address and provide training to our staff throughout the entire school year. We're particularly looking at the engagement strategies and the student stamina. Many of these topics will look familiar to you because we've discussed them in the past with you. The professional development focuses on fine-tuning and providing the most up-to-date information related to those areas. However, if a challenge does come about that needs to be addressed, such as the stamina, engagement, development, and support for second language learners, we will pivot and shift our professional development to start focusing on those areas. And I believe Mrs. Stanley is going to come back.
Just a minor pause there. Okay, so as we wrap up, in the next few board meetings, our topics are going to be, we're going to present on accreditation versus school improvement, because that's really important to see how that compares. We're going to have some staff come and present on state standards and curriculum alignment. What do we do with that work? We will have Jennifer Casey come and talk about learning in the brain. How does trauma, how do the things that are happening outside of our life, how does that affect our learning? Or how do the things that are happening in my classroom, maybe I don't have that trauma in my life, but if things are happening in the classroom, how does that affect our learning? And then we are going to have Spark Wheel, formerly Community and Schools, come and present because they haven't presented for a while. So we would like to hear from them. And as a reminder, Mrs. Glades shared, our state assessments this year are brand new. And so it's like starting all over again in terms of a baseline. Dr. Cardula believes maybe the cutoff scores might be ready in the fall, maybe the fall, maybe would be that maybe, I don't know. So I don't know when we'll have the results. The cutoff scores, the state assessments are strictly their state standards at that grade level. And a group comes in, the students take the assessment. This is what's done in the past. The students have taken the assessment, and then a group of teachers decides, okay, these scores represent a 4, these scores represent a 3. So that also is one of those pieces that Dr. Cardinal and I have talked about. Is it, sometimes do we see that decline when we get to the middle school because the teachers that did those cutoff scores, maybe they had a higher level of expectation to get a 4 than maybe at a previous grade level? We don't know. It's hard to know what that consistency is. So I don't know how they're going to set those cutoff scores, but we'll tackle that when we see it. What questions do you have?
I guess I would just say that, you know, some of this it seems like common sense, like chronic absenteeism. But I wonder, how can we get our community involved and share that message that when you get your students to school, they're going to perform better? And I feel like it takes a community effort, you know,
Yes.
friends and family, wherever we can get that encouragement from our businesses, you know, through some initiatives for different prizes or something like that, so that when we talk about this, there's a pride to it. And so, you know, how do we start to grow that and really involve more? Because I know there's a lot of people that don't have kids that may be older or whatever the case is, but they still want to see our kids be successful. So how can we kind of pull them in and help them be part of the process to improve this with us?
We have a district family advisory council, and that might really be a good task for them to tackle because it includes community members and parents and staff members, so that might be a really good task for them to tackle. I'm encouraged by the fact that our chronic absenteeism is going down. You know, it was really high after we came back from COVID, so I'm encouraged by that, but I do think that's a good topic for them to tackle.
Any other questions?
So I did ask Judy and the teaching and learning team, we'll go to the next one. Keep on going. Oh, we'll start over. So it's on the same, keep going, it's after the questions. Yeah, not questions. There we go. So I did offer if they wanted to come up and do accomplishments, but they really wanted to stick with the state assessment and FastBridge, so I did ask. So, you know, December is a time when we look back and we see how much we've accomplished. And so when we look back, starting from January, Kansas Avenue School Building, that was quite the process. And so going through that and completing that process for first refusal and having that for sale was a big accomplishment. We added the Assistant Director of Student Services, which we hadn't had for very many years. We had 2 Horizon Award winners, which we had not had for very many years. So we're very happy with Allison and Blair, and glad that Blair stuck around with us. You know, that journey started with the steering committee and the rec center. That was a really long time ago, and a lot of work has been done. And then it's nice that IMA is back here, and because it just brings that around to a close. You know, we were very lucky that DCF went ahead and added that other year for our district liaison positions. We're very thankful. Looking for grants to continue that. And then that first quarterly report was in March. That seems like forever ago, but in March 2024 is when we started pulling all of that together. So it's much easier to compare data rather than every single board member having a different assessment to talk about. Pull it all together and show that comparison. And then that class size capacity process was something that very, very appreciative. Judy Stanley really led that, and so had lots of great support with DST, but those were a lot of hoops to jump through, and we did not want to be the district that was the poster child of somebody doing it wrong. And so it went well. It went very well. So very thankful for our teaching and learning and everyone that helped with that. So next year, this will be the first time that we're looking at PLT in a manner that really looks at more professional collaboration. So we're looking forward to that, and that was a lot of input from parents and staff. And then parking lot and entrance improvements, that was such an amazing improvement for our high school and the middle school. And then although Corey was here talking about Mary Herbert and really talking about just, you know, challenging situation, over $5 million in infrastructure improvements across district facilities. So there was a lot of work. There's a dollar sign missing there. Parent Square implementation, that was something that was new, and we worked a long time trying to find the right match, and that was a great match. And so that has been going about as smoothly as we could expect. We've had electronic walkthrough tools, but really this was more how do we pull this all together and make it align with what we're wanting to see out of students, and then what do we need to see with teachers and classrooms that are getting those performances that we need. And then we've been pulling together Frontline Central and True Time, which has been a challenge, but then it's been going better. So I would say that our business department, HR, is all on board with that. And then this is our second year of subsidized reduced meal costs. We were happy that our negotiated agreement was ratified earlier than in previous years, and we're looking forward to having it ratified even earlier. We're happy about our teacher turnover rate decreasing and that we had a better retention, and we were able to increase the number of strategists, so that was huge. That facility usage committee was developed, and then that boot camp for teachers, especially those that are on that alternate track, was really important. So they had an opportunity before the formal, when they would come in and get all the other training, they had that opportunity for classroom management and lesson planning. And so then they had a better foundation. We have seen an improvement in student behaviors, and we've been very happy that we have Jennifer Casey in that district student behavior specialist role. Village Elementary, 7th year in a row as CKH Showcase School, and then Jones Early Childhood. We were so happy with them for getting that CKH Rising Star. We are continuing to work at district-wide to be a district-wide showcase, and Judy and I just had a meeting with CKH this morning just talking about how we can look ahead and continue to improve that. And then Retention Pond Revitalization Project was approved, and it's great to go out there and see all the different changes that are happening and the signs that are out there that really advertise that. Bringing back SIOP was amazing. This is our second year for District Tailgate, and love to see the First Friday t-shirts with everybody. Also, again, that CKH. That greenhouse refurbishment approval, thank you very much. Art Gutierrez was very happy to finish his term as KASB past president. This was our second year of Ruby Bridges. And then the high school band uniforms look amazing, and we just love the student who came and modeled that for us. And then I did add, we did a really great job as a district to that boil water advisory. Everybody jumped, and Jared had gone to the city, just kind of processing through, and there were some different organizations, especially like the hospital, that's completely different. But there are some different organizations that would have done things differently. We were able to say we would do it exactly the same way because it was so successful. And then we did our first year for district-wide potluck dinner. We had people who showed up, and so I think 13, but that's okay. It's a baseline. It's a good baseline. Nowhere to go but up. And then we'll continue as we're moving ahead. So, of course, we're going to continue to focus on school improvement efforts across the district, always talking about recruiting for open positions. We continue to talk about if we want those instructional coach positions, if we want those strategist positions, please recruit. You all, teachers can go out and recruit. And they've been very receptive to that. We're looking forward to having our IBB starting in training with February, and then we'll start those meetings in March. That will be here before we know it. And then on March 12th will be the second year that we'll start the quarterly reports. And then, of course, we continue to support all our students, families, and staff members as those changes occur. That was really important. And we continue to have those meetings. We had another one this morning. And so Kansas Works has been very instrumental. United Way was there. And so really pulling together. So that's been very helpful. And then one thing that was not on there was I went to the dress rehearsal for seasonal celebration, and it was beautiful. And there were Liz Voorhees, who's a retired teacher from the high school, and Robbie Hill, retired counselor, just said it's just beautiful every year. So they just come back for the good feeling of seasonal celebration. So thank you all for all of the work that you've done, because this was all pulled from all the work that's been done during board meetings as well as outside. And then thank you to our administrators, our teachers and staff and students, parents. So it's been a really, really great year. Yes.
Okay, thank you for sharing all that. It's, I think it's, interesting to see some of these things that I feel like were so long ago. But it's great to, of course, celebrate all our accomplishments this time of year. Yeah, but we've done so many great things this year. And thank you all here at the district office and to all of our staff that have done so many awesome things for our students and our community this year. Okay, item 9A is board reports. Flint Hills Technical College?
Yes, we had our meeting on Monday. We had a really good program highlight from our admissions and recruiting team. Just all the things they're doing to get out into the schools and really help kids. Our social media presence is really increasing, and they even shared that they had shared like a post at 10:30 at night and had 4 kids enroll that night. So that was pretty cool. Also, just all the efforts that the tech college is making to help our folks from Tyson and Holiday Resort, and that because they're a smaller school and they're able to offer things that are timely, they can really pivot and meet the needs and provide specialized training and whatever they can do. So just really proud of the efforts of everybody out there on that.
Thank you. Emporia Recreation Commission.
Yeah, so we had met on, I think, November 18th, and that was a fun meeting because when the senior citizens come to the rec center for public comment, you can guarantee that by the time I get there, I'm parking on the street. I think we had about 50 to 60 people, and this was the second meeting that we had about that many people from that community come because they were advocating for the creation of a 50-plus special I'm trying to say this right because we made a kind of a hybrid position out of it. They were advocating for a special employee that would do 50-plus programming, and that would be their primary activity. And let me tell you, they wanted it, and so bad. I think they came to 2 different meetings. But we ended up creating sort of a hybrid position, so we'll have a special populations program director with an emphasis on the 50-plus population, but also a person who would be appropriate for other populations, like engaging your Hispanic community with the rec center, perhaps helping our adult soccer players solve their field access problem, because that's been a big issue for that community. I wanted to let everyone know that Tom McElvoy, the executive director of the Rec Commission, is retiring. His retirement celebration is going to be, I believe it's Friday at 2:30 at the Rec Center, and so you're welcome to stop by and visit. I'm going to plan on stopping in to be there. We also, on that subject, finalized the job description and the job posting for the vacant executive director position, or soon-to-be vacant executive director position. We were originally probably going to hold on to posting that until the sales tax question, but because of recent developments, I anticipate that's going to be posted after the next meeting in the normal course of business, which is a great time to pivot to Jamie.
Thank you, and I will put on my Prairie Rec Center Steering Committee hat. We met on Thursday, and given that Tyson has announced that it's closing, we thought it was just really prudent to listen to the community, and so we have put a pause on advancing the ballot for the Recreation Center. We are all committed. We feel like we have had made great progress, but we just really need to put a pause on this until we let our community settle and we can really understand what's going to be happening after Tyson closes.
And then last, I guess it was 3 weeks ago now, the board attended the KSB convention in Wichita, which is the Kansas Association of School Boards. It was really great to have so many of our board be able to attend and network, and we all got to go to some really great sessions, connect with other boards, and learn a lot from them. Of course, celebrated Art as he was wrapping up his term as past president. And then, most importantly, our art department students were part of the district showcase on Friday, so it was really awesome to get to see them share their artwork with school districts across the state, and we're very proud of them.
Okay. Someone told me that, or it was Josh Pavlik. He even said that people were trying to buy their art. They were so impressed, which is super, super cool. And they couldn't believe, they were like, "Wait, you have this at your school? You have glass point at your school?" So it was really cool.
Yeah. Anytime we get to see them, it's always a great experience. Okay, the next item is 9B, board policy updates. This is the second reading, I think, with a few revisions from the last time we met.
And Mrs. Pam Stranathan, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, here to recap.
If you go back halfway through that document, if you have that in front of you, it starts down with the recommended, where the JBCC, and then about 3 pages past that is where it asks some of the questions that came from the last board meeting was in reference to those dates. So up there where it said from January 1st through June 15th, district administration, that date is correct. That's when we accept applications. So that, we wouldn't change that. That's part of the statute, that we have to open that window to take those applications in. Then when you go down 2 paragraphs, it had the date of July 15th of each year. That is for the lottery process to be completed. So once we do the lottery, it has to be completed by that July 15th, and then the July 30th, which is in the next paragraph, is when you have to notify. So it ends on the 15th, and then you got from the 15th to the 30th to notify those families. So that's why the dates look kind of funny, but if you look at them in that sequence, it makes sense to have that window open until the 15th, the lottery occurs, and then the notification goes out and everything's done by the 30th. Any questions on that?
On that topic, because this summer was the first time we, off the top of your head, how many, any idea how many students were not successful in getting where they wanted to be placed or anything?
That goes over here. Did you?
And you're talking our district, not
Our
across the
district,
state.
right, yeah.
I mean, it's very, yeah, very, very few.
Okay, it was very
few.
limited, yeah, in which we had kind of anticipated, but I think that it would
And
be.
there was a lot of communication with those parents, so it was, it was new, and so making sure that they understood that and explained that, so there were a lot there was a lot of communication to help them understand that.
Because I think, at first when we were hit with it, we didn't know what was going to happen, but I think you all handled it very well.
Thank you. Well, and we watched other districts as well, and we were surprised by how some districts handled it, and so we feel proud about how we handled it. How about that?
Okay, thanks.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. I believe this is an action item.
I'll do it. Right, every time. I move we retire policies EBBD, GARID, JBCC, GAOE, BBG, BCBK, CJ, CL, and accept the updated and new recommendations of EBBD, GARID, JBCC, GAOE, BCBK, CJ, CL, EBBG as recommended and submitted by the policy committee.
Second.
Great, thank you.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is 10A, executive session acquisition of property.
I move to enter an executive session for 15 minutes to discuss potential property acquisition pursuant to the exception for preliminary discussion of the acquisition of real property under coma, and we return to this room at 7:29 p.m. Superintendent Dr. Allison Harder, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations Mrs. Pam Stranathan, and Attorney Paul Lewis are invited to join this session. No action is anticipated.
Second. Motion passes 7-0.
I move to return to regular session.
Second.
Great. Oh, everyone left.
Motion passes 7-0.
I am going to make a motion to enter executive session for 30 minutes to discuss the superintendent evaluation pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under COMA, and that we return to open session in this room at 8:01 p.m. No action is anticipated.
Second.
Motion passes 7-0. I motion to return to regular session.
Second.
Yeah.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, the future board calendar dates. Our next board meeting will be in 2025, January 8th, 2025 at 6 p.m. here at Mary Herbert Education Center. Then after that, we have one of my favorite meetings of the year, January 22nd at 5 p.m. is our student council meeting and dinner at Emporia High School. And then we'll have our regular board meeting at 6 p.m., but that will be held at the high school, not here. And then February 12th at 6 p.m., our regular board meeting here at Mary Herbert Education Center. Okay, and that brings us to adjournment.
I would move for adjournment.
Second.
Grant. We can just hang out. You don't have to keep us in the meeting.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thanks, everyone. Have a